It's my pleasure to introduce right now the individual who's agreed to be here and share some thoughts and perspectives about North Dakota's history and heritage. Serves as president of the North Dakota Lewis and Clark Bicentennial Foundation, which operates the Lewis and Clark Interpretive Center of Washburn and Fort Mandan. Most recently, he was called upon to serve as president of the Lewis and Clark National Bicentennial Council. And in his new role, will be traveling across the United States, and do I say even internationally, to talk about the preservation of history and heritage, and in particular the upcoming Lewis and Clark Expedition Bicentennial. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming a Washburn, North Dakota native, Mr. Dave Borlaug, as this afternoon's keynote speaker.
Well, thank you very much, Phil. Is that coming through okay? I was told to make my comments brief today because you got a lot of other more fun stuff to do than to listen to me, but I don't know, maybe that introduction might be longer than my speech. We'll see. But, we can only hope. Gerard was going to be here today, and as a matter of fact, I was with Gerard a week or so ago. And, and I can understand me filling in for Gerard. After all, he's 6'5" and Native American. I'm 6'2" and Norwegian American. So, it works. I was with Gerard, and he felt real bad he couldn't be here. And we are going to kind of wait, though there'll be a big announcement coming out. But just suffice it to say that both Gerard and I will be working full-time on the Lewis and Clark Trail. And that's the good news. Gerard, many of you know, is a North Dakota native son from the 3 affiliated tribes, and really made a name for himself out at the Little Bighorn battlefield site in Montana, and then most recently has been down in Oklahoma at Chickasha National Forest. And we haven't quite gotten him back home to North Dakota, but we're moving him up a little closer. He's going to be in Omaha, Nebraska. But he is going to be working on the Lewis and Clark Trail, and he is really, really excited, as so many of us are. Well, I'm supposed to talk, Daryl Dorgan asked, that I talk about Lewis and Clark and cowboys. Well, I'm really accustomed to talking about Lewis and Clark and Indians. But Lewis and Clark and cowboys, just bear with me and we'll get to it. But I've got a few other things I'd like to share with you first. And primarily, it is that folks here in North Dakota, here in southwestern North Dakota in this beautiful Badlands, but all across our state, we are right in the middle of an incredible rising tide of opportunity. A rising tide that it's trembling underneath the surface right now, all the way from the front porch of Monticello, Thomas Jefferson's home in Charlottesville, Virginia, to the Arch at St. Louis, to Fort Mandan in North Dakota, to the Great Falls of the Missouri in Montana, and all the way out to Fort Clatsop in Oregon. It is the bicentennial of the Lewis and Clark expedition, which will kick off January 18th, 2003, running through 2006. It will be a huge national commemorative event, and North Dakota is right smack in the middle of it all. And it's already started. From all those places I just told you about and beyond, but right here in North Dakota. I was visiting the Randy Hotzenbeeler earlier today, and he told how many motor coach tours with Lewis and Clark are coming through Medora. And Theodore Roosevelt came a few years after Lewis and Clark, but it still all fits. And when people come here, they want to take in the entire experience. But my responsibility here in North Dakota at Fort Mandan, I can tell you that since opening our doors just 3 years ago, we're closing in on our 100,000th visitor. The first 3 months that we opened, we had visitors from all 50 states, every Canadian province, and 22 foreign countries. We're up to 34 foreign countries now. Just over the Memorial Day weekend, I went and looked at the gift registry, and we had visitors from 24 different states and 7 foreign countries. It's happening already. We're up, our visitation at Fort Mandan is up 13% in May, 13% in June, and if any of you have been on Highway 83, you know it was all ripped up. And July, we're up 17%. It's a huge opportunity. It's an opportunity that North Dakota will never, ever see again. We have the world's attention, and it's this huge tidal wave, and we have choices to make. We can ride that wave in all its glory and just revel in all of its opportunity, or we can swamp ourselves in it, Or worse yet, we could shy away from it, seeking the shelter of more shallow waters. Well, we're not doing that. We're making good things happen. From Williston to the Fort Berthold Reservation to Washburn to Bismarck and all the way out here to Medora and the Badlands, good things are happening already. An infrastructure is being built, new facilities are being opened, and we're getting ready for not just the opportunity of a lifetime, but the challenge of a lifetime, to be world-class hosts to this incredible opportunity to all the people coming from across the country and around the world. And why is this so alluring? What is it that's attracting people? Why has Stephen Ambrose's Undaunted Courage now sold over 2 million copies? That's right up there with trashy romance novels. Why the Ken Burns PBS special was a primetime winner both nights all across the country. And now, National Geographic Society is producing an IMAX film. I don't know if you've been in an IMAX theater before, those wonderful surround sound 3D kind of things. That film of the Lewis and Clark expedition, with footage shot right here in North Dakota, will be seen by millions of people all across North America. And they'll all know the story of Lewis and Clark in North Dakota. There'll be a 4-hour, 2-night miniseries on Turner Network Television, the film version of Undaunted Courage. Folks, we don't need a big marketing budget in North Dakota. History is our press agent. This is going to be a huge national commemorative event, and North Dakota is right in the middle of it all. And the reason why it's so alluring is because it's not just the bicentennial of an expedition, not just a great camping party. It's the bicentennial of the West. It's the bicentennial of the real America. Not the bicentennial of 13 original colonies that we all celebrated in 1976, which really was a birthday party for ourselves, and we celebrated it in our own backyards. This is a birthday party, this is a celebration, a commemoration, if you will, that's going to move people all across the country, across the Lewis and Clark Trail, through North Dakota. Even if they're not fully aware of the great stories that we have of Lewis and Clark in North Dakota, you know, they got to come through here to get to Montana. That's just the way it is. And if we're going to be a speed bump on the way to Montana, then so be it, that'll work too. But one way or the other, millions of people are on their way, and that's the opportunity. It's more than the bicentennial of the West. It's the bicentennial of a piece of our American history that is filled with rich stories of human encounter. That is what makes Lewis and Clark so special in North Dakota, because they spent more time here than anywhere else. And unlike the Rocky Mountain grandeur and the splendor of the Pacific Ocean that other states can talk about, we have a story of human relationships, of a young Indian woman who at the age of 15, with her first child, entered the lives of Lewis and Clark and immortality, and now finds herself gracing the first new coin of the millennium, 1 billion round little billboards with a Native American woman and her young child. And she's North Dakotan. She's ours. And more people will know that. They'll know that she came from the Knife River Indian villages, that her baby was born at Fort Mandan, and they're going to want to come because human relationships, the stories of human encounter, are what make history so fascinating. Well, those stories of human encounter that in the Lewis and Clark story that no novelist would dare make up because nobody would find them plausible, but they really did happen. And the stories of that multicultural experience here in North Dakota, where Chief Sheheke of the Mandans told Lewis and Clark when they arrived, "If we eat, you will eat. If we starve, then you must starve also," forming a bond of friendship that ensured the success of the expedition here in North Dakota. Without that goodwill, the expedition would have gone no further. That's just one little vignette. And you know, that's what you folks have. Here, with your own North Dakota Cowboy Hall of Fame, you have the opportunity to tell the unfolding next chapter, the chapters that followed Lewis and Clark. Thousands of little vignettes, a quarter section of land at a time, of how people came here and through great adversity beat the odds, eked out a living, and in their own quiet, often quiet, but yet heroic way, added to those vignettes of history. You're sitting among people who were part of that history. And that's the part of history that these visitors want to experience. You know, we have a real problem in North Dakota. We have a built-in inferiority complex. We can't understand why people want to come here. Now, those of us who spend more time in Medora can understand why they want to come here, certainly. But I can tell you in Washburn, North Dakota, a lot of my friends and neighbors don't quite get it yet. And they can't understand why all these people are coming to North Dakota, why all those out-of-state plates are pulling into the Interpretive Center. We have so much to offer that we take for granted. And the rich history that we have, including the story of the taming of this land, is what will attract people. And it's a story they may experience thanks to you in this wonderful new facility that you're going to raise the money and make possible. And beyond all those people who are coming, that's great. This job that I have in North Dakota, which pays me a salary, but the volunteer position of representing the entire country for Lewis and Clark, it's just exhilarating to welcome the world, to think of all these people coming here. But let me tell you what gives me much greater satisfaction, and that's educating ourselves. For people who live here in North Dakota even all their life, to understand our rich cultural history. A history that goes back thousands of years, way before Teddy Roosevelt, way before General Custer, and certainly before the Homestead Act. But that's what you have as well. Your piece of that rich history is what is so vital. And I told you at the beginning, I talk a lot about Lewis and Clark and the Indians. Well, that's another thing that's so fascinating about the story of the Homestead Act, the settlement of this area, the ranchers that came out to western North Dakota. You know, Indians are cowboys and cowboys are Indians. And in North Dakota, they weren't shooting at each other either. And that's a mystique of the West that's just not right for North Dakota. It is a multicultural story. And I was so pleased a year ago to see that so many of your inductees into the Hall of Fame were indeed Native American. I believe all from the 3 affiliated tribes at Fort Berthold. And I know that in time, you will honor Sacagawea, just as the National Cowboy Hall of Fame has already honored Sacagawea. You are linked. Out here on the Badlands of western North Dakota, the stories you have to tell, one section at a time, all across this expanse of this great state of North Dakota. Lewis and Clark is part of it. The ranch history of North Dakota is a big part of it. And I'm so glad to be part of it all. As a lifelong resident of North Dakota, this is a chance of a lifetime for all of us. I just feel like the luckiest guy in the world to be able to carry this story across the country, but all of you, each in your own way, can welcome those visitors yourself and make them all feel at home that only we can do in North Dakota. I'm so grateful for your commitment to making things happen out here in Medora and wherever you may come from, to keep this story alive, this rich, rich historical aspect of North Dakota history. Thank you again, and I'll be hanging around if anybody'd like to visit with me afterwards. I promise I won't ask for any money, or if I do, we have to hide someplace so Daryl doesn't see me. But thank you very much for your attention, and stay tuned, folks. This is really going to be something.